You only know the part of my story that begins with a golden ticket, something that still seems unbelievable to me even to this day. You might wonder what would qualify me to run. I'm not a politician. I don't ever want to be one. But I do want to help bring back, at least to my corner of North Carolina, the idea that someone can go to Washington to represent all the people.
All right, we have two members of Congress here who have never made the cut on American Idol, but they've got the golden ticket to our roundtable. And lots to talk about today, including a surprise this morning. Did the Republicans' favorite general just endorse Hillary Clinton? But first, the week's biggest political development, House Speaker John Boehner puts the brakes on immigration reform. Here's ABC's Jeff Zeleny.
What a difference a week makes for immigration reform.
It's time for the Congress and the president to deal with this very important issue.
But by Thursday?
Listen, there's widespread doubt about whether this administration can be trusted to enforce our laws. And it's going to be difficult to move any immigration legislation until that changes.
Speaker John Boehner backing down. His fellow Republicans say the election year focus should stay on criticizing President Obama's still controversial health care law.
We need to make sure that we have a strong growing economy, and we need to deal with this health care situation, I think, before we really wade in deep on immigration.
Perhaps it was doomed from this moment.
So let's get immigration reform done this year.
President Obama saying 2014 is the year to act. There's little question public sentiment is slowly moving toward reform. But several Republicans say, why now?
The energy behind doing something is coming from the president. We've got to steer our course in the House majority about things that are important to us.
Even before Boehner threw in the towel, the writing was on the wall. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell fixated on winning control of the Senate, washing his hands of the issue Tuesday.
I think we have a sort of an irresolvable conflict here.
A conflict the party may avoid, but not for long.
All right, and Jeff joins the roundtable now along with Oklahoma Republican Congressman Tom Cole, Minnesota Democratic Congressman Keith Ellison, former White House senior advisor David Plouffe, and the co-host of CNN's Crossfire, S.C. Cupp. Congressman Cole, I want to start with you. What happened? I mean, less than 2 weeks ago, Speaker Boehner's releasing a statement of principles, talking optimistic about immigration reform, and now suddenly, what? What happened?
Well, I think actually probably people overread both of those incidents. That is, we've begun a dialogue and a conversation inside the Republican conference on this. I think that's good. I think step-by-step progress is still out there. Whether or not Democrats want to work that way, I think is unclear, but you could clearly get a border security bill through. I think you could get HB1 visas through. I think you could get seasonal laborers through. So I think there's still a path there, but I think that's recognizing political reality. There's a lot of division on the issue.
But can we acknowledge that this excuse that the Speaker used, that it's the president and, you know, Republicans can't trust him, can we acknowledge that that was a pretty lame excuse? This was really about, this was about opposition within the Republican conference.
Look, I was at the conference where this was discussed, and I will tell you there is a great deal of skepticism and concern. The president changed on immigration before. He said something he wanted to do was unconstitutional. A year later, he did it. We've seen him change the Health Care Act repeatedly in ways we think are outside the pale. So
this was nothing new in the last 2 weeks, though.
No, it's not new. Well, no, it's not. But you remember, that's a draft statement, not a statement of principles from the conference.
All right,
look, the president has led a government that's been deporting people 1,100 a day. I mean, there's no doubt the president was told if he works on the border, the Republican caucus will work with him on passing a bill. He's done his part. They've failed to do their part, and it's obvious the speaker got a lot of pushback from somebody within his caucus who he has to listen to, and so he changed course. I don't think it's political courage, and I was really disappointed.
Jeff, you think it's dead?
I think it is for now. It's certainly on the back burner. But one thing is totally different than it was a year ago. People aren't saying no, they're saying not now. I mean, having conversations with rank-and-file Republicans on the Hill, the opposition is not nearly as strong as it was a year ago. But the central thing is, why do we want to do this now? Why do we want to sort of split ourselves here? We're doing so well. This is such a banner year for Republicans. So I think the opposition is still there, but there's a realization at some point this is going to happen. But one thing, maybe after these primaries, a lot of Republicans face primary opponents. Perhaps this summer it will start. But for the year 2014, I think it's pretty unlikely that much will get done this year.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is strategy. I think a lot of Republicans think, let's not anger too many other Republicans before 2014. The idea being, we'll win the House, we'll win the Senate in 2014, have a Republican majority, pass immigration reform that we can call Republican. I think also
signed by a Democratic president.
Well, sure, but of course you would have to. But I think the other part of this that you alluded to is a real disappointment in the president. I think when he came out in the State of the Union and more than a dozen times told Congress he'd work around them, that really struck a sort of anachronistic tone. Congress had, in the past 2 months, just come together on a bipartisan budget deal, a farm bill, and real progress on immigration reform. And I think they wanted some recognition for that, not a president who was going to kind of ignore it and say, do it or else. They'd been working together. I think they wanted some recognition.
But David, I want to bring up something that Congressman Ellison mentioned, the deportation. So we put together the stats here. It's really quite remarkable. President Obama is deporting. Do we have that graphic? President Obama is deporting in far greater numbers than President Bush did. So what gives? Does that need to be slowed down? I mean, he's getting a lot of heat from the left on this.
Right. He's following the law, and as technology improves, so the president and the administration are doing their part. And you questioned Congressman Cole, is it lame? It was lame. It was pathetic. It was childish. Do your job. This, I would say, first of all, politically, we want the notion that this is going to get done in 2015, as Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Rubio are running around Iowa and South Carolina, there's no way it's going to get done. And if it doesn't get done this year, in 2016 on election night in November, Colorado, New Mexico, maybe even Arizona, Nevada, Florida will all be blue.
Do you think it's possible to do this in 2015?
I think it's very hard. The energy in Iowa, South Carolina, Nevada, it's all going to be on the presidential. It's going to be the hard right Tea Party. I think it's much harder. I think this is the window. And by the way, the CBO, which is now the Republicans' favorite organization in the entire world, has pointed out it's the single easiest thing Congress could do to help on the economy, to create jobs, growth, reduce the deficit. So the stars seem to be aligned. And here's the thing: Boehner could do this. He wouldn't have to ask a single member to cast a tough vote. There'll be 180 plus Democrats for this. This is, 50, 60, 70, pick the number, get it done, heal your party broadly. Don't ask anybody to do a hard vote specifically.
All right, but you mentioned CBO, and what's really going on here, Congressman Cole, is that Republicans, you want to focus on Obamacare. And this CBO report.
But they don't want to focus on health care.
Yeah, but this CBO report, which showed that the equivalent of 2 million plus workers coming out of the economy, was a gift to you guys. But did you overplay it? I mean, this was...
Oh, I don't think so. Look, Obamacare has been an issue from day one that has hurt Democrats and helped Republicans. It cost them the House. I think it ate into the president's reelection totals. It's hurting them now. Not going to go away because it's fundamentally a flawed, bad policy. And anything that discourages work, and that's essentially what the CBO found, that this discourages some people from working, not a good thing at a time when the economy is still struggling.
But the CBO report did not say that it was going to result in 2 million fewer jobs.
I didn't say that either. But it does
I think
disincentivize. Well, it's going to, what the CBO report does say is that we're going to lose 1% to 2% of hours worked because of this. And, you can argue that's a good thing. I've heard that argument. It gives some people some choices, and I have no doubt in some cases it is. But, again, discouraging work is not something we need to be doing right now. Making our economy marginally less productive, not a good thing. And again, it's not like this is the only flaw in Obamacare. We've got a raft of them to talk about.
What the Congressional Budget Office is saying is that we're going to discourage kids having to have latchkey. We're going to have parents being able to come home working reasonable hours. People are going to be able to retire. People might be able to actually cook dinner rather than have to order out and get some takeout. I mean, the fact is that if Americans can have more choices to open up a new business they've been wanting to start, this is a good thing. If you look at international comparisons country by country, Americans work way more than the average of industrialized countries around the world. And, we might want to look at our our work-life balance, and this is something that gives us a great opportunity.
One of the reasons why Americans live better than people around the world, because they do on balance.
Well, what about Germany? What about Denmark? What about, the fact of the matter is we need a better work-life balance. Ask a working mother, okay, if she could use a few more hours in a day to take care of her family. That's what's really going on.
It's a great spin. I don't think it's going to work.
It's true. It's what
This is a tough argument for you guys to make. The ad saying 2 million fewer jobs is a lot lot easier than making this far more nuanced argument about job lock.
Well,
right?
first of all, I highly doubt the first week of November 2014 voters who are undecided in a Senate or House race are going to be citing the CBO report. We blow these things up in Washington. I'd say this. You asked whether they want to keep the focus on Obamacare. They're obsessed with it. And voters see through that. In 2012, healthcare hurt the Republicans. We had the advantage on this. So the Republican strategy seems to be, we think everything's great. We're going to play four corners. We're not going to do anything. Most Americans and almost every swing voter, they do not want to have another political fight about health care. They want it to be implemented and fixed. And the politics are different.
Essie's shaking her head.
Well, it's true.
The spin on this is incredible. And Congressman Cole is right. We have a lot of things to talk about on Obamacare. But on this particular issue, what has never been controversial in the past is that disincentivizing work is bad economically and culturally and socially. Economists have made it their project.
Except the Heritage Foundation actually praised John McCain's...
to develop welfare programs that disincentivize work the least, because disincentivizing work has always been a bad idea. Now for Democrats, it's suddenly freedom. I mean, I think the American public sees through that. It's a pretty transparent effort at spinning.
But all this argument
is
is too complicated here a little bit. It can be broken down so easily. I went up to a few Democrats who are running in trouble, Mary Landrieu possibly, Senator Sheen from New Hampshire. The look on their face when you ask them about the CBO report is a look of this validates those fears that are out there. So I think at the end of the day, it differs in the electorate. The 2010 electorate in the midterm, was not friendly to Democrats. If Democrats are going to hold on in this midterm this year, they have to change the electorate. It's always been a problem in midterm elections.
Well, here's what I would say. If you're running for office, no, you say, here's what the CBO report said. It would reduce the deficit. It's going to reduce unemployment. It's going to help the economy. And it gives workers more flexibility. End of story. This is not that complicated.
Let's move beyond CBO. I want to look at your own words from 2010 when you famously warned about nervous Democrats. The famous quote about bedwetting. Here we have no bedwetting. Instead of fearing what may happen, let's prove that we have more than just the brains to govern. Let's prove that we have the guts to govern. But look at it now. If you look at all these Democrats that are up in these tough, close races right now, there's a new series of polls in several of these states. Look at Obama's approval rating in the races where the battle over the Senate will be waged. Look how many states he's below 40%. Don't Democrats have a reason to maybe not be wetting their beds, but being nervous about this? Clearly, I mean, they had a reason to be nervous in 2010. They have a reason to be nervous now about the Senate.
Well, 2010, obviously, we had a terrible economy. That was first and foremost why we had a tough election. We had wave elections in 6, 8, and 10. I think and obviously we have tough Senate states. We have easier Senate states, by the way, in 2016. House districts more normal in terms of the terrain. So I think.
But do you think you could lose? What are the chances you lose the Senate?
I think to win the Senate, the Republicans are going to have to basically win everything, run the table. It happens sometimes, but it doesn't happen very often. We've got incumbents.
What are the chances it happens?
I think it's not very good because I think we're going to have people. It's going to come down to individual campaigns in those states, the state of the economy. I do think the health care story improves a little bit. And the Republican brand is tarnished. It's not like voters in these states look at the Republican candidate and says, that's the magic elixir to make Washington work better and to grow the economy and to have people who represent the middle class. So both parties right now are on probation. I think we're going to have a lot of very, very close elections in both chambers.
In 2012, Republicans were really, I think, in denial about the polls and about their weak position running into the presidential election. And I think Democrats really run the risk of doing the same thing this year. I hear the sales pitches about how hard it is going to be for Republicans, but I think what's telling is that you not only have vulnerable Democrats in red states disagreeing publicly with the president, you have safe Democrats feeling rebellious and coming out to disagree with the president. I think that those are realities that the president and Democrats really need to confront.
I want to take a quick turn to 2016, and we hear about the Democrats. I want to talk about a Democrat whose name is not Hillary Clinton, and who talked about this week. Take a listen.
There may be reasons I don't run, but there's no obvious reason for me why I think I should not run. Doesn't mean I'm the only guy that can do it, but if no one else I think can, and I think I can, then I'd run. If I don't, I won't.
So Joe Biden can't come up with a reason why he shouldn't run. You actually think he'd be a good candidate, Essie?
I really do, and he's absolutely right. I mean, I think it's really remarkable that a sitting vice president for 2 terms and a former presidential candidate himself is kind of being ignored in this conversation for the most part. I mean, imagine if during the Clinton administration, Al Gore was the afterthought, and everyone was talking about Madeleine Albright running for president.
Right.
That's exactly what's happening now. And yeah, I mean, Democrats are bleeding old, white, blue-collar guys. And if anyone can reach that demographic, it's Joe Biden.
It's Joe. Okay, well, we had on Hillary Clinton, a very interesting thing. There's a new book out, HRC, by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. Not a lot new in the book, but they did have this fascinating nugget. David Petraeus saying on the record that Hillary Clinton would make a tremendous president and giving her a pass on Benghazi. Look at this. Like a lot of great leaders, her most impressive qualities were the most visible during tough times. In the wake of the Benghazi attacks, I thought she was extraordinarily resolute, determined, and controlled. I mean, Tom Cole, if David Petraeus has given Hillary Clinton a pass, in fact, praising her for how she handled the Benghazi attacks, takes a little wind out of the sail, doesn't it?
I don't think so. Look, it was a debacle. It was on her watch. She should have known security was not taken care of. She calls it herself her greatest regret in her time as Secretary of State. So I think it'll be an issue. Do I think it's going to be the deciding issue in the campaign? No. Look, I think Americans look at presidential candidates in particular in their totality. And Hillary Clinton has a long record. There's a lot of pluses in it. There's some minuses in it.
Give us the last word, Congressman.
The only thing that the Republicans are obsessed with Obamacare more is with Benghazi. This is completely just a political game they're playing. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, they're all great candidates, far better than what our friends are going to put up.
What a predictable comment.
It's a great seal of approval.
All right.